What kind of man walks out of Siberia's frozen wastes, hypnotizes a royal family, and survives poison bullets and a river's icy grip? Grigori Rasputin, known as the Mad Monk, was a figure so strange and shocking that his life reads like a fever dream from Russia's final imperial days. If this bizarre tale of mysticism and power hooks you, hit that subscribe button like this video and share it to uncover the twisted story of one of history's most enigmatic figures. Leave a comment. Could you imagine a peasant like Rasputin ruling an empire from the shadows? Grigori Yefimovich. Rasputin was born in 1869 in Pokrovskoye, a remote Siberian village where superstition and hardship shaped daily life. Tall with piercing blue eyes and a wild beard, Rasputin cut an imposing figure, his disheveled appearance masking a charisma that could captivate or unsettle. Far from the holy monk of legend, he was a peasant with no formal religious training. Yet his hypnotic presence and claims of divine visions earned him the title of starets, a holy wanderer. What made Rasputin shocking wasn't just his rise to power, but his raw, unpolished strangeness, a man who smelled of sweat and spoke in riddles, yet held the Russian court in his thrall. Rasputin's early life offers clues to his enigma. Growing up in a harsh, isolated village, he was steeped in Russian orthodoxy and folk mysticism, believing he could commune with God. At 18, he married Praskovia Dubrovina, fathering 4 children, but his restless spirit led him to wander as a pilgrim seeking spiritual enlightenment. He claimed visions of the Virgin Mary, which locals believed gave him healing powers. By his 30s, Rasputin was a wandering mystic, preaching a bizarre mix of piety and sin, insisting that one must embrace vice to truly repent. This doctrine, coupled with his magnetic gaze, drew followers and controversy. In 1903, Rasputin arrived in St. Petersburg, a city buzzing with decadence and unrest. Russia was on the brink of upheaval, with the Romanov dynasty struggling to maintain control amid poverty and political dissent. Rasputin's reputation as a healer caught the attention of Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra, desperate to save their hemophiliac son, Alexei. In 1905, Rasputin was summoned to the royal palace, where he reportedly eased Alexei's bleeding with prayers and a soothing presence. Modern historians suggest his success may have been psychological calming, Alexandra's anxiety, which reduced Alexei's stress and symptoms. Whatever the truth, this moment cemented Rasputin's grip on the royal family. What's shocking about Rasputin wasn't just his influence, but his audacity. He was no polished courtier. He was a coarse peasant who drank heavily, boasted of his conquests, and openly flirted with noblewomen. Yet the Romanovs saw him as a divine emissary, calling him our friend. His presence in the palace scandalized the aristocracy, who whispered of his debauchery and rumored affairs with Alexandra. These rumors, likely exaggerated, fueled his myth as a sinister manipulator. Modern analysis suggests Rasputin's power stemmed not from supernatural gifts, but from his ability to exploit the Romanovs' desperation and Russia's superstitious culture. The emotional toll on Russia was profound. The peasantry revered Rasputin as a holy man, but the elite saw him as a threat to the monarchy's legitimacy. His influence over Alexandra, who relied on him during Nicholas's absences, sparked fears of a shadow government. By 1910, Rasputin was a polarizing figure, loved by some, loathed by others. His unrefined manners, eating with his hands, boasting of his holy sins, made him a lightning rod for scandal. Yet he seemed untouchable, his hold on the Romanovs unbreakable. As Rasputin's star rose, so did the plots against him. How did a peasant mystic become the most powerful man in Russia's shadows? Stay tuned for the chilling details of his scandalous influence and the enemies he made. But first, comment below. What shocks you most about Rasputin's rise from peasant to power? Like and share to spread this dark history, the scandalous reign of the Mad Monk. How does a coarse peasant reeking of vodka and sin charm his way into the heart of an empire, only to become its most reviled figure? By 1910, Grigori Rasputin, the mad monk, had woven himself into the fabric of Russia's imperial court, his hypnotic grip on the Romanovs sparking scandals that threatened a dynasty. If this shocking tale of debauchery and power hooks you, smash that subscribe button like this video and share it to spread the story of one of history's most enigmatic figures. Drop a comment. Could you imagine a man like Rasputin wielding such influence over a royal family? Grigori Rasputin's rise from Siberian obscurity to the glittering palaces of St. Petersburg was nothing short of miraculous or diabolical, depending on who you asked. By 1910, at age 41, he was a fixture in the Romanov court, revered by Tsarina Alexandra as a holy healer who could ease her son, Alexei's hemophilia. His unkempt beard-piercing eyes and rustic charm made him an anomaly among the polished aristocracy, but it was his brazen behavior that set tongues wagging. Rasputin wasn't just a mystic. He was a walking scandal, his life a blur of drunken orgies, spiritual rants, and audacious power plays that shook Russia to its core. Rasputin's influence stemmed from his hold over Alexandra, who saw him as a divine savior. Alexei, the heir to the throne, suffered from severe bleeding episodes, a secret the royal family guarded closely to avoid political weakness. Rasputin's ability to calm the boy, likely through a mix of charisma and psychological soothing, made him indispensable. Historical records show that by 1911, he was advising Alexandra on matters beyond Alexei's health, including political appointments and military decisions. His letters to her, filled with flowery religious prose, called her Matushka, Little Mother, a familiarity that horrified courtiers. Modern historians suggest Rasputin's influence was less about mysticism and more about exploiting Alexandra's desperation and isolation, a dynamic that gave him unprecedented power. What's shocking about Rasputin was his unapologetic debauchery. He frequented St. Petersburg's bathhouses and taverns, drinking heavily and boasting of his conquests with noblewomen. Witnesses described him hosting wild parties where he preached his doctrine of sin to salvation, the idea that one must embrace vice to achieve redemption. These gatherings, often attended by aristocratic women drawn to his raw charisma, were rife with rumors of orgies and impropriety. A 1912 police report detailed Rasputin's behavior at a bathhouse where he was seen staggering drunk, exposing himself, and claiming divine favor. Such scandals fueled accusations that he was sleeping with Alexandra, a rumor historians now dismiss, but which inflamed the Russian elite at the time. The emotional toll on Russia's aristocracy was immense. Nobles like Prince Felix Yusupov and Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich saw Rasputin as a threat to the monarchy's legitimacy. His influence over Alexandra, who often relayed his advice to Tsar Nicholas II, led to disastrous political decisions, including the appointment of incompetent ministers. By 1914, as World War I loomed, Rasputin's meddling in state affairs, urging against military mobilization, sparked outrage among generals and politicians. The peasantry, however, revered him as a holy man, a voice for the common folk in a court of decadence. This divide deepened Russia's social tensions with Rasputin as the lightning rod. Rasputin's personal life was equally chaotic. His wife Praskovia remained in Pokrovskoye, raising their 4 children while tolerating his wanderings. She reportedly accepted his holy lifestyle, a testament to his persuasive charm. Yet his behavior drew enemies. In 1914, a scorned follower, Kionia Guseva, stabbed him in the stomach, screaming, "I've killed the Antichrist." Rasputin survived, claiming divine protection, but the attack marked the beginning of his enemies' resolve to end him. Modern medical analysis suggests his survival was due to luck and a robust constitution, not miracles, but it bolstered his myth as unkillable. The societal backdrop of pre-revolutionary Russia amplified Rasputin's infamy. The Romanovs were already weakened by unrest with strikes and protests, signaling a crumbling empire. Rasputin's presence in the palace, a peasant advising a Tsarina, was a scandal that symbolized the monarchy's disconnect from reality. Newspapers, though censored, spread rumors of his debauchery, with cartoons depicting him as a devil puppeteering the throne. These stories, often exaggerated, cemented his image as a sinister manipulator, though some historians argue he was more opportunist than mastermind, exploiting the Romanovs' vulnerabilities rather than orchestrating a grand scheme. Rasputin's scandals weren't just personal, they were political dynamite. His influence over Alexandra, who governed in Nicholas's absence during the war, led to decisions that alienated allies and fueled dissent. By 1916, whispers of assassination plots grew louder as nobles and politicians saw Rasputin as the key to Russia's ruin. How long could a man so divisive survive in a nation on the brink of collapse? In the next part, we'll dive into the chilling assassination attempt and the myths that made Rasputin seem invincible. But first, let's hear from you. Comment below. What shocks you most about Rasputin's scandalous hold over the Russian court? Like and share to help us bring more dark history to light. The gathering storm and enemies of the monk. How does a man become so reviled that nobles, generals, and even priests plot his death, driven by fear that he's dragging an empire into the abyss? By 1916, Grigori Rasputin, the mad monk, was no longer just a scandalous mystic. He was a national threat, his influence over the Russian royal family fueling conspiracies that would lead to one of history's most brutal assassinations. If this chilling tale of betrayal and desperation hooks you, smash that subscribe button like this video and share it to spread the story of one of history's most polarizing figures. Drop a comment. Could you imagine plotting to kill a man like Rasputin to save a nation? By the winter of 1916, Grigori Rasputin's grip on the Russian court had reached its peak, and so had the hatred he inspired. At 47, his wild beard-piercing eyes and ragged robes made him a walking contradiction. A peasant mystic, dining with royalty, whispering in the ear of Tsarina Alexandra. His ability to soothe Tsarevich Alexei's hemophilia cemented his place in the Romanov palace, but his meddling in politics and scandalous behavior turned him into a lightning rod for Russia's mounting unrest. As World War I ravaged the nation, Rasputin's enemies saw him as a cancer eating away at the monarchy's last threads of legitimacy. Rasputin's influence was at its most dangerous during the war. With Tsar Nicholas II at the front lines, Alexandra governed in St. Petersburg, relying heavily on Rasputin's advice. Historical records show he influenced key decisions from appointing ministers to opposing military strategies. In 1915, he urged Alexandra to replace competent officials with loyalists, many unqualified, leading to chaos in governance. One notorious appointment was Boris Sturmer as prime minister, a man so inept that nobles accused Rasputin of installing puppets to control the throne. Modern historians argue Rasputin's influence was exaggerated, but to contemporaries, he was a shadowed czar, manipulating a desperate Tsarina. What's shocking about Rasputin was his reckless defiance of his enemies. He flaunted his power, boasting at drunken gatherings about his sway over Matushka Alexandra. Police reports from 1916 detail his escapades in St. Petersburg's taverns, where he'd slur about bedding noblewomen and shaping Russia's fate. These stories, often embellished, fueled rumors that he was Alexandra's lover, a charge that historians now deem unlikely, but which enraged the aristocracy. Nobles like Prince Felix Yusupov, one of Russia's richest men, and Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, saw Rasputin as a peasant usurper, his presence a stain on the monarchy. Even the Russian Orthodox Church, once his ally, turned against him with priests denouncing him as a heretic. The emotional toll on Russia was palpable. The peasantry still saw Rasputin as a holy man, a voice for the downtrodden against a decadent elite. But in St. Petersburg's salons, he was a symbol of decay, his influence blamed for military losses and economic collapse. By 1916, Russia had lost over 2 million soldiers in the war, and food shortages sparked riots. Alexandra's reliance on Rasputin alienated allies with foreign diplomats, warning that his presence weakened the Romanovs' credibility. Letters from the time reveal Noble's desperation. One aristocrat wrote, "The monk must die, or Russia will." This sentiment birthed a conspiracy, led by Yusupov Pavlovich and politician Vladimir Purishkevich, to eliminate Rasputin once and for all. Rasputin's personal life added fuel to the fire. His family in Pokrovskoye, wife Praskovia, and their children remained distant, rarely seeing him. Yet he maintained a strange duality, sending money home while indulging in St. Petersburg's vices. His followers, a mix of devout peasants and aristocratic women, flocked to his apartment, where he held spiritual sessions that often turned debauched. One chilling incident in 1915 involved a noblewoman who claimed Rasputin assaulted her, only to be silenced by threats from his allies. Such stories, whether true or exaggerated, painted him as a predator, amplifying calls for his death. The societal backdrop of 1916 Russia was a powder keg. The war had stretched the empire to its breaking point, with soldiers deserting and workers striking. Rasputin's influence, real or perceived, became a scapegoat for these failures. His survival of the 1914 stabbing by Kionia Guseva, who called him the Antichrist, only bolstered his myth of invincibility. Modern medical analysis suggests his recovery was due to a strong physique and crude surgery. But to his followers, it was divine proof. This aura of unkillability made his enemies more determined, planning a murder so elaborate it would become legendary. As the conspiracy tightened, Rasputin seemed oblivious or defiant. He received warnings of plots, but dismissed them, claiming God's protection. How would his enemies finally bring down the man who seemed untouchable? In the next part, we'll delve into the chilling night of Rasputin's assassination and the gruesome details that made it infamous. But first, let's hear from you. Comment below. What shocks you most about the hatred Rasputin inspired among Russia's elite? Like and share to help us bring more dark history to light. The night of the Mad Monk's murder. How does a man survive poison bullets and stabs only to meet his end in a frozen river, leaving a nation to wonder if he was truly human? On December 30th, 1916, Grigori Rasputin, the Mad Monk, faced a meticulously planned assassination that became one of history's most brutal and bizarre killings. If this chilling tale of betrayal and bloodshed hooks you, smash that subscribe button like this video and share it to spread the story of one of Russia's most enigmatic figures. Drop a comment. Could you imagine plotting a murder as desperate as Rasputin's? By late 1916, Grigori Rasputin's influence over the Russian royal family had made him a target for a desperate aristocracy. At 47, his hypnotic hold over Tsarina Alexandra and his meddling in politics during World War I had pushed Russia's elite to the breaking point. The Romanov dynasty was crumbling under war losses and economic chaos, with Rasputin blamed as the puppet master behind disastrous decisions. A group of conspirators, Prince Felix Yusupov, Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, and politician Vladimir Purishkevich, resolved to kill him, believing his death would save the monarchy. What unfolded was a night of horror that would cement Rasputin's legend as the unkillable mystic. The assassination was planned at Yusupov's Moika Palace in St. Petersburg, a lavish setting that contrasted with the grim intent. On the night of December 30th, Yusupov lured Rasputin to his basement under the pretense of a party, promising a meeting with Yusupov's wife, Irina, a renowned beauty. Rasputin, ever fond of female company, arrived in his finest silk shirt, his beard combed, reeking of cheap cologne. The basement was staged with wine cakes and a gramophone playing soft music, but the treats were laced with cyanide, enough to kill several men. Yusupov, charming and nervous, offered Rasputin the poisoned cakes and wine, expecting a swift death. What happened next shocked the conspirators. Rasputin ate the cakes and drank the wine with gusto, showing no signs of poisoning. Hours passed, and he grew merrier, singing Siberian folk songs and pressing Yusupov for Irina's arrival. Modern toxicology suggests the cyanide may have been degraded by heat or improperly mixed, but to the conspirators it seemed Rasputin was invincible. Panicked, Yusupov retrieved a revolver and shot Rasputin in the chest. The monk collapsed, blood pooling on the floor, and the group assumed he was dead. But as they examined the body, Rasputin's eyes snapped open, and he lunged at Yusupov, roaring like a beast. The conspirators, horrified, fired more shots, hitting him in the back and head. Still, Rasputin refused to die. He staggered into the palace courtyard, clutching his wounds as Purishkevich fired additional bullets. The monk crawled toward the gate, gasping threats of vengeance. Desperate, the conspirators beat him with clubs, wrapped his body in a curtain, and drove to the Neva River, where they dumped him through a hole in the ice. The river, frozen and dark, swallowed Rasputin, ending the night's gruesome ordeal. When his body was recovered 2 days later, an autopsy revealed water in his lungs, suggesting he was alive, when submerged, a detail that fueled his myth of supernatural resilience. The emotional toll on Russia was immediate and chaotic. The peasantry, who revered Rasputin as a holy man, mourned him as a martyr, with some claiming he'd rise from the dead. Alexandra was devastated, retreating into grief and clinging to Rasputin's memory as a divine protector. Tsar Nicholas II, informed at the war front, was furious but powerless, as the killers were high-ranking nobles. The aristocracy, hoping the murder would stabilize the monarchy, instead faced backlash as Rasputin's death inflamed tensions. Riots and protests grew, with many blaming the elite for murdering a man of the people. The societal backdrop of 1916 amplified the assassination's impact. Russia was unraveling, with over 3 million soldiers dead in the war and bread lines stretching through St. Petersburg. Rasputin's murder, meant to save the Romanovs, instead hastened their downfall as it exposed the court's dysfunction. The conspirators faced minimal punishment. Yusupov was exiled, Pavlovich sent to the front, further eroding trust in the monarchy. Modern historians argue the assassination was a desperate act by a nobility, blind to the revolution brewing with Rasputin's death, becoming a symbol of imperial decay. The murder's brutality shocked even hardened Russians. Yusupov's memoir, published years later, described the night with a mix of horror and pride, claiming Rasputin's strength was demonic. This narrative, though likely exaggerated, fed the myth of Rasputin as unkillable. How would his death reshape Russia's fate? And what mysteries lingered in its wake? In the next part, we'll explore the aftermath, the Romanovs' collapse, and the enduring legend of the Mad Monk. But first, let's hear from you. Comment below. What shocks you most about the gruesome details of Rasputin's assassination? Like and share to help us bring more dark history to light. The fall of an empire and Rasputin's shadow. What happens when a mystic's murder sparks the final unraveling of an empire, leaving a nation to grapple with the chaos he left behind? The assassination of Grigori Rasputin, the Mad Monk, in December 1916, didn't save the Romanov dynasty as his killers hoped. It hastened its collapse, plunging Russia into revolution and cementing Rasputin's legend as a harbinger of doom. If this chilling tale of betrayal and downfall hooks you, smash that subscribe button, like this video, and share it to spread the story of one of history's most enigmatic figures. Drop a comment. Could you imagine a single death triggering the end of a dynasty? The brutal murder of Grigori Rasputin on December 30th, 1916, sent shockwaves through Russia. The 47-year-old mystic, poisoned, shot, beaten, and drowned in the Neva River, was gone. But his death did not bring the salvation Prince Felix Yusupov and his co-conspirators had envisioned. Instead, it exposed the fragility of the Romanov dynasty, already crumbling under the weight of World War I economic collapse and social unrest. Rasputin's influence over Tsarina Alexandra had made him a scapegoat for Russia's woes, but his removal only deepened the crisis, revealing a court and nation on the brink of catastrophe. The emotional toll on the Romanovs was profound. Tsarina Alexandra, who saw Rasputin as a divine protector of her hemophiliac son, Alexei, was devastated. Historical accounts describe her retreating into mourning, clutching Rasputin's prayer beads, and writing frantic letters to Tsar Nicholas II at the war front. She believed his death was a betrayal of God's will, a sentiment that further isolated her from the court. Nicholas, informed of the murder, was torn between grief and anger, but hesitated to punish the high-ranking conspirators, Yusupov Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich and Vladimir Purishkevich. Their lenient sentences: exile for Yusupov, military reassignment for Pavlovich, outraged the peasantry who revered Rasputin as a holy man. This leniency fueled perceptions of a decadent, out-of-touch monarchy. The societal impact was immediate and explosive. Russia in early 1917 was a tinderbox, with over 3 million soldiers dead in the war and food shortages sparking riots in St. Petersburg. Rasputin's death meant to restore faith in the monarchy, instead inflamed tensions. Peasants mourned him as a martyr, with some villages holding vigils believing he'd rise from the dead. Rumors spread that his body recovered from the Neva showed signs of life, a myth fueled by the autopsy's note of water in his lungs. The aristocracy, meanwhile, celebrated briefly, but their relief was short-lived. The murder exposed the court's dysfunction, with Alexandra's reliance on Rasputin, revealing her as unfit to govern in Nicholas's absence. By February 1917, strikes and protests escalated into the February Revolution, forcing Nicholas to abdicate in March, ending 300 years of Romanov rule. What's shocking about Rasputin's aftermath is how his death became a catalyst for collapse. Modern historians argue that while Rasputin wasn't the sole cause of the revolution, his murder crystallized Russia's divisions. The peasantry saw him as a symbol of their voice, silenced by elites. The nobility viewed his removal as too little too late to save a failing regime. The conspirators, hailed as heroes by some, were vilified by others, with Yusupov's memoirs later revealing his torment over the act. The murder's brutality: poison failing bullets barely slowing. Rasputin fed his myth of invincibility, with some claiming he was a demon who cursed the Romanovs. This legend grew as the royal family faced their own grim fate. The Romanovs' downfall was swift and tragic. After Nicholas's abdication, the family was placed under house arrest, first in Tsarskoye Selo, then in Siberia. In July 1918, they were executed by Bolsheviks in Yekaterinburg, a bloody end that many linked to Rasputin's prophecy. He had warned Alexandra that if he died by noble hands, the dynasty would fall within 2 years, a prediction eerily fulfilled. While likely a coincidence, this fueled myths of Rasputin's supernatural foresight, with some peasants believing his spirit haunted the royal family's final days. Rasputin's personal legacy was equally chaotic. His wife Praskovia and their children in Pokrovskoye faced ostracism, with their home vandalized by those blaming Rasputin for Russia's woes. His daughter Maria later fled to Europe, writing memoirs that painted him as a misunderstood healer, though few believed her. The Russian Orthodox Church, once his ally, denounced him as a heretic, erasing his name from religious records. Yet his followers persisted, forming small cults that venerated him as a saint, a testament to his enduring charisma. The societal backdrop of 1917 amplified Rasputin's impact. The Russian Revolution, sparked months after his death, led to the Bolshevik rise and decades of upheaval. Rasputin became a symbol of imperial decay, his name synonymous with corruption and mysticism gone awry. Modern analysis suggests his influence was overstated, a convenient scapegoat for deeper systemic failures, war poverty, and autocratic rule. Yet his ability to exploit the Romanovs' vulnerabilities, particularly Alexandra's desperation for Alexei's health, made him a pivotal figure in Russia's collapse. As Rasputin's myth grew, so did the questions about his true nature. Was he a holy man, a charlatan, or something darker? In the next part, we'll explore the enduring mysteries of Rasputin's life and the cultural legacy that keeps the mad monk alive. But first, let's hear from you. Comment below. What shocks you most about how Rasputin's death fueled Russia's revolution? Like and share to help us bring more dark history to light. The mysteries and myths of the Mad Monk. What kind of man inspires tales of supernatural powers, demonic curses, and an unkillable spirit, leaving historians and mystics alike questioning his true nature? Grigori Rasputin, the Mad Monk, was dead by 1917, but the mysteries surrounding his life, his healing abilities, his hypnotic charm, and his eerie predictions fueled myths that made him a legend beyond the grave. If this chilling exploration of enigma and obsession hooks you, smash that subscribe button like this video and share it to spread the tale of one of history's most baffling figures. Drop a comment. Do you believe Rasputin had real powers, or was he just a master manipulator? After his brutal assassination in December 1916, Grigori Rasputin's body was pulled from the icy Neva River, his death confirmed by water in his lungs and a bullet in his skull. Yet the circumstances of his murder surviving poison multiple gunshots and a beating sparked questions that linger to this day. Was Rasputin truly unkillable, blessed with divine protection, or simply a man with an extraordinary constitution? His life a blend of mysticism, scandal, and political intrigue, left behind a tangle of truths and legends that continue to captivate and confound. The Mad Monk's story wasn't just history. It was a riddle wrapped in a nightmare. One of the greatest mysteries was Rasputin's apparent ability to heal Tsarevich Alexei, the hemophiliac heir to the Russian throne. Historical records confirm that Rasputin summoned during Alexei's bleeding episodes could calm the boy, reducing his pain and stabilizing his condition. In 1907, during a severe crisis, Rasputin prayed over Alexei, and the boy's bleeding slowed a feat doctors couldn't explain. Modern medical analysis offers a plausible answer. Rasputin's soothing presence and hypnotic voice likely reduced Alexei's stress-lowering blood pressure and aiding clotting. Yet to Tsarina, Alexandra, and her court, this was divine intervention, cementing Rasputin's image as a holy man. Some contemporaries, however, whispered of darker powers, with rumors of occult rituals and pacts with demonic forces. Rasputin's hypnotic charisma was another enigma. His piercing blue eyes, described as burning by those who met him, seemed to bend wills. Aristocratic women like Anna Vyrabova, Alexandra's confidant, fell under his spell, attending his spiritual gatherings, which often descended into debauchery. Police reports from 1915 detail Rasputin's ability to hold court-swaying followers with rambling sermons about sin and redemption. Modern psychologists suggest he was a master of suggestion, using a mix of charisma, body language, and psychological manipulation to exploit vulnerable minds. His doctrine of sin to salvation, embracing vice to achieve grace, was a seductive justification for his excesses, drawing devotees and detractors alike. The emotional toll of Rasputin's mystique was felt across Russia. For the peasantry, he was a saint, a peasant who rose to speak for them in a court of elites. After his death, some villagers in Pokrovskoye claimed to see his spirit in the forests, a protector, watching over the downtrodden. For the aristocracy, his influence was a curse, a symbol of the monarchy's weakness. Tsarina Alexandra's devotion to Rasputin, seen in her frantic letters preserving his advice, deepened her isolation, making her a target of scorn. The Romanov family's reliance on him fueled rumors of scandal, with cartoons depicting Rasputin as a puppeteer controlling the throne. These perceptions, whether true or exaggerated, hastened the dynasty's fall in 1917. Rasputin's predictions added another layer of mystery. He reportedly warned Alexandra that if he died by noble hands, the Romanovs would fall within 2 years. When the royal family was executed by Bolsheviks in July 1918, less than 19 months after his murder, many saw it as proof of his foresight. Historians argue this was likely a calculated warning, leveraging his knowledge of Russia's unrest, but to believers, it was prophecy. Similarly, his survival of the 1914 stabbing by Kionia Guseva, who called him the Antichrist, bolstered his supernatural aura. Medical records suggest his recovery was due to a strong physique and crude surgery. But followers saw divine intervention, while enemies whispered of demonic resilience. The societal backdrop of post-1916 Russia amplified Rasputin's myths. The February Revolution of 1917, followed by the Bolshevik takeover, plunged the nation into chaos. Rasputin became a scapegoat for the old regime's failures, his name synonymous with corruption and mysticism gone awry. His daughter Maria fled to Europe, writing memoirs that portrayed him as a misunderstood healer. But her claims were drowned out by sensational tales. The Russian Orthodox Church, once his ally, condemned him as a heretic. Yet small cults persisted, venerating him as a martyr. By the 1920s, Rasputin's story inspired novels, plays, and early films, each adding to his legend as a demonic or divine figure. Modern analysis offers clarity, but not closure. Psychologists view Rasputin as a charismatic opportunist, exploiting Russia's superstitious culture and the Romanovs' desperation. His healing was likely psychological, his influence a product of timing and charisma rather than supernatural power. Yet the sheer number of attempts on his life-stabbing poisoning shooting raises questions about his physical endurance. Forensic studies of his autopsy suggest hypothermia and drowning were the final blows. Not demonic strength, but the myth persists. Rasputin's ability to polarize saint to some, devil to others, makes him a case study in how charisma and chaos intertwine. As Russia rebuilt after the revolution, Rasputin's name endured a symbol of a nation's descent into madness. What legacy did he leave, and how did his myth shape the world beyond? In the next part, we'll explore the cultural impact of the Mad Monk and the enduring questions that keep his story alive. But first, let's hear from you. Comment below. What shocks you most about the mysteries surrounding Rasputin's powers? Like and share to help us bring more dark history to light. The eternal shadow of the Mad Monk. What kind of legacy does a man leave when his life and death become a haunting myth, whispering through history as a warning of power, faith, and chaos gone awry? Grigori Rasputin. The Mad Monk was murdered in 1916, but his story didn't end in the icy Neva River. It grew into a legend that shaped Russia's cultural memory and continues to captivate the world. If this chilling finale hooks you, smash that subscribe button like this video and share it to spread the tale of one of history's most enigmatic figures. Drop a comment. What does Rasputin's myth teach us about the dangers of unchecked influence? Rasputin's death on December 30th, 1916 marked the end of his physical presence, but his shadow loomed large over Russia and beyond. The brutal assassination, poison bullets, stabs, and drowning cemented his image as an unkillable force, a mystic who defied death itself. His murder, meant to save the Romanov dynasty, instead accelerated its collapse with the February Revolution of 1917 and the Bolshevik execution of the royal family in 1918. Rasputin's eerie prediction that the Romanovs would fall within 2 years if he died by noble hands came true, fueling tales of his supernatural foresight. This prophecy, likely a calculated warning based on Russia's unrest, became a cornerstone of his legend, blending fact with folklore. The emotional toll of Rasputin's legacy was profound. For the Romanovs, his death was a devastating blow. Tsarina Alexandra, who saw him as a divine protector of her son, Alexei, never recovered her grief, deepening her isolation. The royal family's execution in 1918, just 19 months later, was seen by some as Rasputin's curse, fulfilled a narrative embraced by peasants who revered him as a martyr. His family and Pokrovskoye wife, Praskovia, and their children faced persecution. Their home vandalized by those blaming Rasputin for Russia's collapse. His daughter Maria fled to Europe, later performing as a dancer and writing memoirs to defend her father, but her efforts were overshadowed by the myth of the mad monk as a sinister manipulator. Rasputin's cultural impact was immediate and enduring. In post-revolutionary Russia, he became a symbol of imperial decay, his name synonymous with corruption and mysticism run amok. The Bolsheviks used his story to vilify the old regime, portraying him as a symptom of autocratic failure. By the 1920s, his life inspired novels, plays, and early silent films, each exaggerating his powers. A 1932 Hollywood film, Rasputin and the Empress, depicted him as a hypnotic villain, cementing his image in Western pop culture. Songs like the 1978 disco hit Rasputin by Boney M. turned him into a larger-than-life figure, blending historical fact with sensational flair. These portrayals, though often inaccurate, kept his legend alive, making him a global icon of dark charisma. The societal backdrop of post-1917 Russia amplified Rasputin's myth. The Russian Revolution and subsequent civil war left millions dead and the nation in chaos. Rasputin became a scapegoat for the monarchy's failures, his influence blamed for decisions that fueled unrest. Yet modern historians argue his role was overstated, a convenient narrative for a nation seeking answers. His ability to exploit the Romanovs' desperation, particularly Alexandra's fear for Alexei's health, was less about supernatural power and more about psychological acumen. He was a master of timing, stepping into a court desperate for hope amid war and upheaval. His myth, however, outgrew the man, with stories of his demonic strength and curses persisting. Modern analysis offers a clearer picture of Rasputin's complexity. Psychologists describe him as a charismatic opportunist, leveraging Russia's superstitious culture and the Romanovs' vulnerabilities. His healing of Alexei likely relied on calming techniques, reducing stress to aid clotting, rather than miracles. His survival of multiple assassination attempts, poison bullets, and stabs owed more to a robust physique and possible cyanide degradation than divine protection. Forensic studies of his autopsy suggest drowning was the final blow, debunking tales of supernatural endurance. Yet these rational explanations do little to dim his mystique. Rasputin's ability to polarize saint to peasants, devil to nobles, makes him a case study in how charisma can reshape history. One shocking detail sealed Rasputin's legend. His body, recovered from the Neva, was rumored to have been found with one arm raised as if defying death, even in the icy depths. While likely a post-mortem effect, this image, reported by witnesses and spread through newspapers, became a haunting symbol of his unkillable spirit. It's a fitting end for a man whose life blurred the line between reality and myth, leaving a legacy that warns of the dangers when faith and power collide unchecked. Rasputin's story is a cautionary tale. Absolute influence, even born of desperation, can lead to ruin. His myth endures not just as history, but as a reminder that charisma can hide chaos, and neglecting a nation's wounds invites disaster. If this tale of the mad monk shocked you, hit that subscribe button, like and share, to spread these haunting stories with the world. Comment below. What do you think Rasputin's legacy reveals about human nature? Your engagement helps. Weird History Unveiled, bring more dark history to light. Don't miss our next dive into the strangest corners of the past. Subscribe now. The immortal myth of Rasputin. How does a peasant mystic murdered in a frozen river become a ghost that haunts history. His name whispered as a warning of power, faith and chaos intertwined. Grigori Rasputin, the Vagelmonk, died in 1916, but his legacy as a figure of myth and mystery endures, shaping art culture and our understanding of the thin line between charisma and catastrophe. If this haunting finale hooks you, smash that subscribe button like this video and share it to spread the tale of one of history's most enigmatic figures. Drop a comment. Can a single man's myth truly shape the way we view an entire era? The death of Grigori Rasputin in December 1916, after surviving poison bullets, stabs, and a beating only to drown in the Neva River, marked not the end, but the birth of an immortal legend. His brutal assassination by nobles desperate to save the Romanov dynasty failed to stop Russia's collapse, and instead it ignited a firestorm of stories that transformed Rasputin from a man into a symbol. Over a century later, his name evokes images of a wild-eyed mystic, a demonic manipulator, or a misunderstood saint, depending on who tells the tale. His legacy is a testament to the power of myth to outlive reality, a shadow that continues to captivate and unsettle. Rasputin's cultural impact was immediate and far-reaching. In the chaos of 1917 Russia, as the Romanovs fell and the Bolsheviks rose, he became a scapegoat for the empire's failures. Soviet propaganda painted him as the ultimate villain, a lecherous monk whose influence exposed the monarchy's rot. This narrative, though exaggerated, resonated globally, inspiring early 20th century literature and theater. By 1932, Hollywood's Rasputin and the Empress dramatized his life, portraying him as a hypnotic tyrant, a caricature that shaped Western perceptions. The 1978 disco hit Rasputin by Boney M., with its catchy refrain of Russia's greatest love machine, turned him into a pop culture icon, blending humor with horror. These portrayals, while often inaccurate, ensured Rasputin's name never faded. His story a lens for exploring power and madness, the emotional toll of Rasputin's legacy was felt most keenly by those tied to him. His family in Pokrovskoye, wife Praskovia, and their children endured harassment after his death, their home a target for those blaming Rasputin for Russia's woes. His daughter Maria, who escaped to Europe, became a lion tamer and dancer, later writing memoirs to defend her father as a healer, misunderstood by a jealous elite. Her efforts were largely dismissed, drowned out by the sensational tales of the Mad Monk. The Romanov family, executed in 1918, carried Rasputin's shadow to their graves, with Tsarina Alexandra's devotion to him cited as a reason for their downfall. Peasants who revered him as a saint held secret vigils, some believing his spirit guarded Russia's soul, a belief that lingered in rural villages for decades. Rasputin's myth was fueled by enduring mysteries. His ability to soothe Tsarevich Alexei's hemophilia, once seen as miraculous, is now attributed to psychological calming, reducing stress to aid clotting. Yet stories of his hypnotic gaze and survival of multiple assassination attempts, cyanide-failing bullets barely slowing him, persist as evidence of something supernatural. Forensic analysis of his 1916 autopsy suggests drowning was the final cause of death, with water in his lungs. But rumors of his arm raised in defiance as he sank added a chilling detail. One shocking revelation came years later. Yusupov's memoir claimed Rasputin's body was burned after recovery, to prevent his return, a desperate act by conspirators fearing his supernatural power. This detail, whether true or embellished, sealed his image as a figure beyond human. Modern perspectives offer clarity, but deepen the enigma. Psychologists view Rasputin as a charismatic opportunist exploiting Russia's superstitious culture and the Romanovs' desperation. His sin-to-salvation doctrine was a psychological tool justifying his debauchery while drawing followers. Historians argue his political influence was overstated, a convenient narrative for a failing empire, but his ability to manipulate Alexandra's fears for Alexei gave him real power. The 1917 revolution, sparked months after his death, used Rasputin as a symbol of imperial decay, yet his myth outgrew the politics, becoming a universal tale of charisma gone wrong. Today, scholars like Douglas Smith, author of Rasputin, Faith, Power, and The Twilight of the Romanovs, see him as a product of his time, a man whose flaws and gifts collided with a nation's collapse. Rasputin's legacy endures in unexpected ways. In Russia, he remains a polarizing figure, with some Orthodox groups pushing for his canonization, citing his devotion, while others denounce him as a heretic. His image in popular culture, films, books, even video games, keeps him alive as a symbol of dark charisma. His story warns of the dangers of unchecked influence, showing how one man's presence can tip a fragile system into chaos. The Mad Monk's life, a blend of faith, vice, and power, reminds us that history's most shocking figures often thrive in the cracks of a broken society, their myths outliving their deeds. One final detail haunts his story. A letter allegedly written by Rasputin days before his death warned Alexandra of his murder and Russia's doom. Found years later, its authenticity is debated, but its existence fuels the belief that Rasputin saw his end and embraced it, a last act of defiance from a man who lived on the edge of myth. His story is a dark mirror, reflecting the chaos of blind faith and the fragility of power. If the Mad Monk's tale shocked you, hit that subscribe button, like and share, to spread these haunting stories with the world. Comment below. What do you think Rasputin's myth reveals about the power of belief? Your engagement helps Weird History Unveiled bring more dark history to light. Don't miss our next dive into the strangest corners of the past. Subscribe now.